What's up?
Hey man, what's going on?
Not much. You hear me good?
Yep, I hear you perfect.
It's awesome. So, talk about the nightmare of the season is finally over with. It went by super, super quickly.
Thankfully.
Thankfully, yes. You want to talk about who you think, who your MVP is this year in offense, MVP defense, expectations for next year, and just overall, just let it all out.
We can do that. And then you want to do I wrote down like some resolutions, New Year's resolutions for like some of the not everything, but like just a couple for the Packers for 2019.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, what?
Yeah, we can let's hit all of it.
Okay, yeah, no problem. It's been a super busy day.
Yeah.
Yeah, long day at work.
Did you say that did you start a new job?
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going good. You know, I've been focusing so much energy on the new job, learning everything. So it's like blessing the Packers season's over, but at the same time, I wish there was more.
Right. I feel you.
You can't win them all.
So I think so I was just gonna pull up that schedule that did you see the thing Andy sent out on it's on Slack?
No, what did he send out?
So starting tomorrow and going through like pretty much next week, each episode is going to be dedicated to like one head coach that like the Packers have already interviewed or are going to interview.
Okay.
So like tomorrow they're going to do Josh McDaniels. So I thought he asked us to kind of promote that today. And so with that news of that guy Pete Carmichael, they just said that
that's a name, man. That is a name.
Oh yeah, it's Pete Carmichael Jr. So there's two of them running around.
That's a fantastic name.
So they just reported that he's been like kind of added to that list. So I think if we'll kind of like hit through all our stuff, or actually I think maybe let's lead off with that as a kind of like just a like breaking news kind of thing, and just kind of like, hey, he's the offensive coordinator for the Saints. He'll be like they're reporting that he could be on that coaching list, and then we'll kind of like plug right there that like the next several days are going to be dedicated to each coach, and then after that we'll kind of like we'll segue into all of our stuff.
Yeah, and just a quick question. My laptop is broken,
Yeah.
so I'm using this different computer. And so I was just wondering, do you remember what the Slack password is to get into our Slack?
Because that's a really good question.
I had it saved on my laptop, so I didn't, it's saved on my laptop. I don't need to memorize it, but now my laptop's broken.
Right.
So I was just, because that's one reason why I didn't see that thing from Andy.
I'm going to check my email real quick because I think that's where he sent that stuff out.
At least on the email?
I think. Let me see if. Yeah, here we go. Vince Workman.
What's that?
Vince Workman. Like Vince Work Man. All one word, no capitalizations.
Gotcha. So that's all I need?
That's the password for it.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, ready whenever you are.
Okay. Let me get back to my. All right. Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Pack a Day podcast. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Hope you're having a great start to your new year. Dan Kotnick here with you today, as always, for the first time in 2019. My partner in crime, Chris Schimmel. Chris, good holiday for you. Good Christmas. I think we haven't really talked since before the holidays. We've had our 2 episodes sandwiched in between the entire holiday season. Busy for you? You traveling a lot?
Well, for New Year's, not really. I just hung low at home with my girlfriend. And, I'd want to go out and have fun. But when you hear your friends say, oh, we're going to a bar, but it's $50 cover. Like, yeah, I don't want to pay $50 to get into a bar like you guys. So I'm just going to.
$50?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of bars in Milwaukee where you have to pay a ton of money to get in. And then, of course, what are the odds of you making your way to the bar and ordering a drink that's going to probably cost extra? So I just kicked it and stayed home. How about you?
That reminds me. It reminds me of that that Geico commercial of the guy that's turning into his dad, and they go to the club like, oh, $10 cover. Didn't see that on the website. Get a round of jalapeno poppers for me and the boys.
Yeah, right.
No, Christmas season. I was traveling all over the place. Thankfully, New Year's we got to stay in and went to the Detroit Red Wings game on New Year's Eve, which led into bars. Thankfully, we found a bar that didn't have a $50 cover.
Lucky. Yeah, for Christmas, I was traveling back and forth. My girlfriend's family's in Madison, mine's in Brookfield, which is just outside of Milwaukee. So Christmas Eve at one family, Christmas at the other. So driving back and forth like crazy. But
same. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I have family that lives in the in like near the tip of Ohio in Dayton, and then girlfriend's family up close to Traverse City area. So if you're mapping that out, that's a good 7.5-hour drive, which I made straight through on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
So yeah. But thankfully, I had plenty of Pack-A-Day podcasts to keep me company.
I know, right? Like
my drive up.
Once you discover podcasts, like driving, like I'd be listening to a podcast driving to my girlfriend's place in Madison. It's only about like an hour away, and I'm listening to a podcast. And by the time I arrive, I don't want to arrive because I want to finish this episode.
It's perfect.
That happened to you?
Yeah, I mean that's. And not to be more of a plug for this, but our episodes here, I listen to it every single day on the way to work because my commute is just about the same time as each of our episodes. And so it's perfect. But thankfully, I logged them for my travels throughout the Christmas season. So some news to get to before we dive into today's episode. Obviously, the off-season, or at least the beginning of this off-season, is going to be focused pretty much entirely on the head coaching decision for the Green Bay Packers, finding the replacement for Mike McCarthy. Today being reported by Jason La Canfora and WTMJ as well that the Packers have requested an interview with the offensive coordinator for the Saints, Pete Carmichael Jr. He's been the offensive coordinator for the Saints since 2009, so he got in there right when they started that Super Bowl run in 2009, 2010. So he'll be added to the growing list of head coaches. Chris, does the name, it's not one that's been thrown around too much recently, but does the name Pete Carmichael Jr. pique your interest, knowing that he's part of that offensive juggernaut that the Saints have been the last decade or so?
Well, first, his name is amazing. His name is knocks it out of the park. That is a great name. And at the same time, you're excited because the Saints and their legendary offense. If you take a look, even on their down seasons when the Saints went 3 straight years at 7-9, they had a top 5 offense every year. So they've had a Super Bowl caliber offense basically this entire decade, which is pretty hard to do. The Packers, on the other hand, they've had some bumps down the road, 2015, last year, this year. Saints have been steady the entire way. So it's exciting to see that. However, some might say, Sean Payton's the guy calling all the plays. So is this guy creating all the plays and then giving Sean Payton the keys to the car and then Payton takes over? What do you think?
You definitely could make the argument for that. And then, also you throw in the fact that he's been able to play and coach with Drew Brees in a dome situation like that, which has to help out, a high-powered offense like that, and who maybe some of these coaches that they're bringing in for interviews could be people that they're bringing in as candidates potentially for offensive coordinator positions, defensive coordinator positions. If you've been doing this for basically a decade now and you have a Super Bowl ring with a quarterback like Drew Brees, and you've been a contender pretty much that entire time, I think that that's somebody to at least take a look at. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if you take a look at the Packers in the 90s, guys like Steve Mariucci, Andy Reid, they all got jobs after leaving the Packers that they didn't call the plays. Holmgren was. And look how well they did once they left. The Mariucci with the 49ers leading them to the playoffs. Andy Reid, of course, Eagles, and now the Chiefs. And the Chiefs scored 565 points, third most all time. And so that just shows you how great he is at adapting to the league. So I think this is overall really, really solid interview. I feel I'm actually getting more and more excited about this the more we talk about it.
Well, it's going to be very exciting, this whole entire process. It's something that Packer fans haven't gotten to experience for 13 years now, a head coaching search. And the good thing about us at Pack-A-Day is that we're on every single day, so we have a lot of time to discuss all of these different options. And actually, we're going to spend the next several days, a solid week at least, breaking down each and every one of these head coaching candidates, people that the Packers have reached out to or have at least expressed interest in getting an interview on. So each day for the next week at least, we're going to be breaking down a new head coaching candidate for the Green Bay Packers. It starts tomorrow. The first one, Andrew and Kyle are going to break down Josh McDaniels, who's probably, you could consider maybe the front runner, at least from the, a name standpoint for the Packers, but each and every day the next week. So I think that's probably the best thing. You get an in-depth breakdown of each and every one of these guys, almost like a draft prospect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So are you excited about McDaniels? What do you think?
McDaniels, I know that things have been said about the red flags aren't that big, but man, I think he burned the bridge for me.
That's why I think if he does what he did in Indianapolis, that is career suicide.
Yeah.
Basically. Like if he does this, not only will he burn a bridge, but he'll like napalm it.
Yeah.
Okay. To the point where nobody's going to take him seriously. And you're going to have to wait for Belichick probably to die before he can take over the Patriots. So,
yeah.
It's if you told me this 2 years ago, I would have been really, really excited. Before this whole Indianapolis Colts drama, I would have been super excited for Josh McDaniels. But right now, I'm like you. I'm skeptical.
Very skeptical. And then you just throw in that he wasn't really that impressive in his last time, and the track record for Bill Belichick coaches aren't really the best. So I'm keeping an open mind with everybody, as like I said, this is kind of a new experience for a lot of us Packers fans as we head into the off season now and getting ready for draft, and we're going to watch playoffs and everything else like that. But we kind of wanted to break down the 2018 season for the Packers, look ahead to 2019, make some New Year's resolutions for the Packers as well. So as we wrap up this season, Chris, MVPs for both sides, what went well, what didn't go well, just kind of put a bow on things with the 18th season. Star players on both sides of the ball for you. Who do you pick?
Offense, Devontae Adams and David Bakhtiari. And then on defense, I like Kenny Clark. And even though he had ups and downs, I thought Blake Martinez had a really, really solid year.
I'm just to be a bit of a contrarian. And because, I mean, obviously, if you're going just straight MVP, it's Devontae Adams. Because, I mean, the guy was 2 catches away from breaking a record that a lot of people thought.
When he didn't play, I was so upset.
I know.
Throw him 2 wide receiver screens, okay?
That's exactly right. The fan in me said just two little dink passes.
Yeah,
for 0 yards and just get him out. That's all I want. Right?
Oh.
And plus, I don't care if you have to tape his knee together.
Hurt. I didn't know that he was hurt. All of a sudden, it's like he's out. Wait a minute, I didn't even hear anything about this. Why? But oh well.
Yeah, that was kind of the one thing I was looking forward to in that game, and it got taken away.
It was the only thing everybody was really looking forward to. I mean, it was all hyped up on social media. Like that was the go-to thing because they're not going to make the playoffs. So that was like the go-to thing. And then but probably one of the most positive things to come out of that game was Kyler Fackrell getting double-digit sacks.
Yeah.
That was probably the only upside of that entire game.
I mean, never could have predicted that at the beginning of the season. I mean, you and I, we broke down that position group.
Yeah.
Before the season started. And
you thought that was going to be like a Reggie Gilbert thing after what happened in the preseason.
Right.
Absolutely. But it's absolutely crazy. And to think that Kyler Fackrell also doesn't have that great of teammates around him. The fact that he was able to get there with virtually no help. I mean, you don't see a lot of guys like Clay Matthews double teamed anymore.
Right. Yeah. He basically was, basically doing it kind of all on his own. But like I was saying, if I was going to give an offensive MVP, I'm going to pick Corey Linsley. The center for the Green Bay Packers played every single offensive snap this year. I mean, that he really just sits down there in the middle of that offensive line. I know that I think he gets the credit that's due to him from Packers fans. But if I'm going to pick an interesting kind of, off the wall MVP, I'll pick Corey Linsley, your center that played. I mean, that just doesn't happen much anymore.
So he's like the X factor, you're saying? He's like the Rug and the Big Lebowski that brought the room together.
Brought the room
He
together.
brought the offense together. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, center outside of quarterback is probably like the lieutenant on that.
Oh yeah, he
that
needs
offense.
to have the brains,
you know what I mean?
Because a lot of times a quarterback wants to sit there and read the defense, and you let the center is the one who's going to call out the protection scheme. So it gives one less thing on the quarterback, so the quarterback can spend more time looking at key matchups, and that's huge. So you need to have a really smart center in Corey Linsley, and he's overdue for a Pro Bowl too. I mean, I feel like he could have had more than one. And I remember when originally he was going to play 2014 season, week 1 against the Seahawks, and Bruce Irvin said, "I'll pray for him."
Mm-hmm.
He had a fantastic rookie year. And
he did.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I would put Linsley at number 3 behind my Devontae Adams and Bakhtiari.
Like that. Defensively, it's really hard to kind of like find someone a little bit different on the defensive side. I think, Kenny Clark, like you said, he came into his own this year. I think last year we kind of saw him develop and start to blossom, and this year he just kind of came and said, "I'm here. I'm established. There's no more, up and coming. Like I am here. I've made my entrance to the NFL."
Yeah, he kind of like took the torch from Mike Daniels as the best defensive lineman, and kind of like how Mike Daniels may have taken it from Cullen Jenkins or stuff like that. So it was just a passing of the torch. So I am really excited about Kenny Clark because he's so damn young.
Yeah.
Isn't he still like 22, 23?
Right around there. I mean, this is only his second or third year, yeah. I'm pretty sure.
One of the last great first-round draft picks by Ted Thompson.
That's very true. Probably the last great first-round pick that he
7 sacks as a defensive tackle. I mean, I know Aaron Donald is wreaking havoc, but I don't care what people say. 7 sacks for a defensive tackle and a 3-4 defense is something else.
I think if you wanted to find another, if you really wanted to dig and search for another defensive MVP, you might want to look Bashard Breeland. 2 interceptions on a team that finished almost dead last in interceptions this year.
Oh yeah, I was gonna bring that up. They had only 7 interceptions all year, which is by far the lowest of the last decade. Before that, it was 11. Check this out. From 2008 through 2011, 2008, 22 interceptions. 2009, 30. 2010, 24. 2011, 31. Since then, their most ever has been 18. And it's crazy because people are thinking, with Mike Pettin coming back and optimistic about the defense and how the secondary is better with Jair Alexander and Josh Jackson. Only 7 interceptions. That's just mind-boggling because I remember when they had only 11 in 2013, the first thought was get a safety, and they got Clinton Dix. But I still think that pass rush is their number one thing going into this offseason.
I would have to agree. I think you can. Yeah, I think that's the prevailing sentiment now.
Well, because of the 2 first-round draft picks, do you think more pass rush in the first round? Or if there's a great safety, do you grab them?
I think you go. I think you have to focus on pass rush.
Yeah.
It's going to depend obviously on what comes your way, what falls your way, what you can do to move up or move down.
Yeah.
But I think if all things equal, it has to be you have to go pass rush, even if it's the 3rd or 4th best rated pass rusher in that draft. I think that's what you have to go for.
Yeah, but you really think Breeland MVP of the entire defense throughout year?
Oh, I think if you're looking for a dark horse kind of candidate to pull out of there, I mean that's why I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying that if you were trying to look for somebody else. Okay. In a defense that didn't force a lot of turnovers, and he comes in basically over a quarter of the way through the season, dealing with injuries and being put into a new system that he didn't, get a training camp to kind of get familiar with. He played pretty admirably, and I think also kind of proved that he can make a difference on the special teams return game as well a little bit if needed. If that's where you need to put him.
Okay, what would you? But my boy Blake Martinez.
Oh no, yeah.
My girlfriend wanted to get a Blake Martinez jersey for Christmas, and that was the one thing I left off because, dude, jerseys are expensive. But
Yeah,
Blake Martinez, I mean, he tied the mark last year. He set the Green Bay Packer record for tackles in a season with 144. He got 144 again this year, but 5 sacks and 3 passes defended. I'm thinking, do you think he can possibly make an All-Pro team with those numbers? Second team All-Pro, maybe?
He has an argument for it.
Because, I mean, those are Luke Kuechly type numbers.
Yeah.
And I don't think he gets the respect he deserves. Yeah, I mean, he's still young, only 3 years in the league. He's not perfect, but I think the guy is turning into a stud.
I would agree. I mean, if anything else, he has control of that defense, and it seems to be, he seems to have kind of the head for it.
Oh yeah, Stanford grad. I love the Stanford guys, except for Kyle Murphy. I didn't like that
guy. Yeah. Well, Chris, I wanted to throw some things out here since we're just a couple days into 2019. A couple of New Year's resolutions that I've put together for the Packers.
Okay.
You throw your, if you've got something to throw in, comment, hit them, throw them my way. But this is what I've got.
All right.
So I'm starting out with Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be my most hot takey of them all, but we'll see. Aaron Rodgers, your New Year's resolution is to lose weight in your head. The head needs to shrink a little bit because you cannot go into a new head coaching regime like this and have this kind of diva outlook on things. Not to say that he was a diva or is a diva or a bad teammate, but I mean, there's definitely conflict that he's had with the coaching staff the past couple of years, and it's causing things to not work out. And I know that in most cases, Aaron Rodgers, you're probably right, but you've got to kind of humble yourself a little bit if you want this to work.
Well, everyone says how he has this legendary chip on his shoulder where he's super sensitive, where you say anything to him, he's going to remember it the rest of his life. I want some random dude to go up to him and say, stop acting like Favre at the end of his career. Maybe that will wake him up, because I know he obviously the guy holds grudges. The guy has a huge chip on his shoulder. Someone needs to yell that to him or something, because then he might change. But yeah, I agree, because especially I guarantee you when these new head coaches are interviewing, they're going to be asking about him. They're going to be asking, is this guy a wild horse that's going to buck me off? If I'm going to accept this job, I'm going to have a one-on-one great relationship with the quarterback.
Right. How much was he involved in potentially Mike McCarthy leaving? You know what I mean? I mean, everyone, it's the LeBron James thing. Is he, quote unquote, a coach killer? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coaches don't want to run into a situation like that, really, no matter how good you are. My next New Year's resolution is for Brian Gutekunst, GM of the Green Bay Packers. And that, Brian, is your resolution is find true love in 2019 in the free agent market. Brian, find your true love in the free agent market, because Ted Thompson did it with Charles Woodson. Ron Wolf did it with Reggie White. You've got to find your big guy in free agency. I mean that's just the mark of every GM.
And when you
all
say
of those
that,
Super Bowl teams.
And when you say that, are you leaning more toward offense or defense? Because I'm leaning more toward defense.
I think it has to be defense. I mean, if you can make a splash on offense, I mean, it can't just be another Jimmy Graham signing. It's got to be a big whale. Like, I don't want to say Antonio Brown, but if it's Antonio Brown, that would be a splash pick. Mm-hmm. But I think you have to lean.
And not somebody, I mean, I know Charles Woodson was old, and so was Reggie White. A lot of people are saying they're past their primes. And same thing with Jimmy Graham when people got him. I think we all knew he wasn't going to put up the numbers he did with the Saints, but we expect a little bit more. So are you thinking you want to get a guy who's smack dab in his prime, or would you be upset if you get a guy who's a little bit older, around 30, but may have a little bit gas left in the tank.
Personally, I don't know if it matters as long as they contribute and make that kind of impact. You know what I mean? Because that's why it worked with Reggie White and Charles Woodson. You had the established franchise quarterback and an offense that is, one or two pieces away from being able to compete for something. You need to make the splash pick on defense. You've got to find something there on defense. And whether it's a Julius Peppers type player that's trying to get a couple more good years out of you, or it's a younger guy that you convince to join the ranks, as long as they have the impact, I think that's what counts.
Yeah, completely agree.
Wide receivers, your next New Year's resolution. The whole wide receiver core 2019 needs to be about reconnecting with family. And it all starts with the patriarch of the family, and that's Aaron Rodgers. Get back on the same page. I know I just talked about Aaron Rodgers being too big-headed, but you all need to bury, I don't know if there's the hatchet or there's no communication, but go out to the woods for a camping trip for a week and, I don't know, have bonfires and make s'mores.
That reminds me
to connect.
It reminds me a couple of years ago, like I think Jordy Nelson, he has his farm out in Kansas and he invited all the wide receivers to go out to his barn. Something like that, because I just think of the one play where it's 3rd and 1 and of course, and nobody's open. And so it's a scramble drill and they're all like 30, 40 yards downfield. And Rodgers is telling everyone, come back to me. It's only 3rd and 1, just come back. And they didn't do it. Stuff like that. Like, I mean, I know you practice a scramble drill, but little stuff like that, you need to get on the same page. So yeah, I completely agree. And especially now with Randall Cobb, Randall Cobb's gone, those received, and Randall Cobb was great in the scramble drill. So, they're probably going to miss his leadership at least. I know he didn't perform that well this year. But,
I mean, you've got these rookies, these young guys that haven't gotten a lot of time and experience. You can't really just say we're going to hang out together for these 25 weeks of the season and hope things click, as things go along. You're going to need to put in some extra effort in 2019 to make things work.
Yeah, that's what separates the average from the good and the good from the great.
Exactly. My last one, we kind of actually already touched on a little bit, and it goes to Mike Pettine's entire defense. Now, it can be just the defense because, who knows if Mike Pettine's going to be sticking around as defensive coordinator, what happens with the head coaching position. But for the defense, you need to change your eating habits. You need to get healthier and put more turnovers into your diet.
Yeah, trim the fat off and get some turnovers because, this defense allowed 400 points this year. That's the second most of the past decade. And this is also the second year in a row where the Packers have allowed more points than they've scored.
And the thing with the points is those points are actually just, a little above average for the entire NFL. Mm-hmm. The thing though is, like I was looking at it, the Rams, the Chiefs, the Saints all give up roughly the same amount of points when you average it out.
The reason though is because they score so many points and then it gets into a track meet in order to keep up. So they start airing the ball out.
Right. They score points, but those teams also get way more turnovers. The Rams, are near the top in interceptions and turnovers. And I know that they've got kind of an otherworldly defense, but creating turnovers is really the biggest thing your defense can do anymore. It's not even so much about giving up, so many points. It's getting the ball back to your offense as many times and as quickly as possible for them to score is really what the defense is there for now.
Right. At the same time, points off the board, that means getting turnovers. For example, it's the Bears. The Bears, number one scoring defense, led the league in turnovers. When the Packers won the Super Bowl in 2010, I think they were second in total defense. Mm-hmm. They had 24 interceptions. They were right up there ahead of the league. So I feel they got to go hand in hand, and I feel getting a good pass rush will really, really help out with all of that.
I agree. I think so. So as we kind of wrap up things here, Chris, final thoughts as this is our last chance to talk there. There's a a fairly good chance that before we talk again, we might have a new head coach by that time. Final thoughts before we get to that point.
Oh, well, I mean, it's been so long since Packer fans have gone through this process that, oh man, I don't even know. I mean, this is so incredibly tough because I'm not used to even talking about this. Because
it's almost like Game of Thrones. Everyone that was born in summer has no idea what winter is like, and so no one's prepared for winter. No one understands what's coming in winter.
Oh yeah, because like I said, when Mike McCarthy was hired, I was in 7th grade.
Right.
So it's so crazy to think about this. And I remember when McCarthy was hired, everyone was like, "Who? Who is this guy?" And so I feel the head coaching thing is out of the control. I'm more anticipating what Gutekunst does in free agency and the draft.
Yeah.
Because that's actually, I think, more fun to predict because I don't know. I'm not used to just looking at all the different head coaches.
It's more familiar. We can at least it's something we know. Right. Exactly. So, I mean, well, speaking of head coaches, like we mentioned at the top of the show, make sure you're sticking with us throughout this whole offseason, but especially this coming week because we're breaking down each and every one of these head coaching candidates that the Packers have reached out to, have had interviews with before. It starts tomorrow with Andrew Mertig and Kyle Fells. They're breaking down Josh McDaniels, and then moving on, we've got Chuck Pagano, Jim Caldwell. I mean, all the list, and then obviously adding to the list today was Pete Carmichael Jr. So the list is going to keep growing as things go on, and the only way to keep up to date with all of it is to stick with us here at Pack a Day Podcast. So make sure you're subscribing, reviewing, rating us, following us everywhere that you follow your podcast, on Twitter as well, at Pack a Day, and then myself, DK all the way, and then my partner, Chris Schimmel. He's at Chris Schimmel on Twitter. Give us a follow on there as well. Kicking off your 2019 right here on the Pack a Day Podcast. Make sure you stick with us. And as always, 2018, 2019, 2055, we ended always with the 3 best words: Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
That was good.
Yeah, I'm looking at statistics right now. The Packers on defense, even though it's so crazy to look at their numbers and think, all right, overall this defense was crap, but you're like optimistic because the fact that Mike Pettin was able to get 44 sacks, which is their most since 2012 with this squad, shows his creativity. Because everything else, like interceptions, they're 29th, they're 22nd in scoring defense, they're 18th in total defense. But I don't know. It's like it's so weird that I feel more optimistic toward the future, even though on paper they were like worse than they were last year.
Right. I had to fend off like family members about it was literally like my uncle was like, well, regardless of what happens here, if they don't fire this defensive coordinator, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. Like, are you fucking insane? I was like, I'm like sitting there like I was like, it was like I was trying to explain like the earth is round to somebody, in the Middle Ages.
It's like, dude, I understand, but me being a guy who's in marketing, you have to put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Right.
So I'm thinking if I was in Mike Pettin's shoes, I would be, of course he doesn't have any hair. I was going to say tear my hair out. But dude, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, you totally fucked that up. Like, there's only so much you can do. That's why if I'd be up in the booth, like where he is, I would almost be like putting my fist through the glass window.
Right.
So it's so frustrating being a coach, and people really don't appreciate some of the stuff the coaches do. It's like being a teacher in class. There's only so much you can do if a student won't pay attention.
Right. It's like the parent comes home and says, well, why is my son getting a C? You should be fired because he's getting a C. Well, you don't see that all the crap that he's doing here and all the crap I have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. So Mike Pettin, though, the fact that this squad was so razor thin at outside linebacker, their 3 starting defensive linemen were all gone by the end of the year. You had to move
rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, you had to move Tramon Williams to safety.
You've got Kentrell Bryce at safety.
And then you have Kevin King, who is out for the year.
Right.
And then Jake Ryan, your other linebacker, he's out for the year. I mean, he was dealt a terrible hand just to start the year. And so the fact that you can get 44 sacks with this squad, imagine if they had the 2015 Broncos.
Right. Imagine even if just the defensive line stayed healthy. If you had Mike Daniels and Mo Wilkerson on that defensive line, imagine what you had going with that. Because that right there, I think, automatically helps out the cornerback position. It makes it so much easier. I mean, there was just so much crap that could have happened this year.
Oh, yeah, because think about it. If you have a great defensive line and you're able to stop the run, then maybe you don't have to put your safety toward the line of scrimmage, and then he doesn't get hurt.
Right.
It's a little things that happen. So if your defensive line gets a lot of pressure on the quarterback, well, then you don't have to do these corner blitzes all the time, and then the corners get hurt. So, exactly. All of this stuff molds together.
When will people learn that we're the only right ones?
Well, it's because, I love the NFL. I love football. I love people who are passionate about football. But, I've come to the realization that the average football fan's an idiot.
Yeah.
That's why I hate watching football games at bars. Because I hate
because there's always one asshole.
Because I'm listening to these idiots around me, like a player missed a tackle, and you'd be like, "Oh, this coordinator sucks. Fire him." I'm like, the guy missed the tackle. What do you want? Coordinate? So I can't listen to other people at bars. Can't do it.
Yeah. And it's always guaranteed there will be a fan of the team you're playing at a bar, no matter where the hell you are. You can go to the North Pole, and a fan will show up at that bar to root against your team.
Oh, I was watching the Bears-Vikings game at a bar, and it was full of Bears fans. I felt sick.
Oh, God. That's enough to make you vomit. And then the Packers are obviously on at the same time, so I'm sure, they're all loving that.
Yep.
God. All right. Well,
I mean, it could have been worse this year. It could have been Oakland.
No, exactly. I mean, or it could have been the Vikings. We could have been paying $84 million guaranteed to a crappy quarterback.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I really thought the Vikings were going to the Super Bowl. I really did. I thought that they were stacked coming into this year.
I mean, I knew they had problems on the offensive line.
But I thought their defense
was
so good, and I thought with Thielen and then Stephon Diggs and then Dalvin Cook coming back, I thought they don't even need to be top 5 offense in the league. They just need to be average on offense, and with that great defense, they go to the Super Bowl. Instead, their defense was solid this year, but offensively, like, man.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, Matt, until next time.
Yep.
Take it easy. Don't stress yourself out too much over the new job.
Yeah, I'm trying not to. See ya.
All right, later, man.